Okay, ahoy. My name is Richard Jordan Bishop. I am out to demo a software project I did for school a couple months ago. I think I finished in October. It is for the task was to create a customer engagement schedule just for some generic enterprise, and so I am here to walk you through it. Uh, let's just start by logging in. So this does check against the database whether your credentials are correct, and it also, the very first thing it does is it pops up with an alert if you have an appointment within 15 minutes, which we do. Um, Now, some of the fun in this project was trying to navigate and convert between different time zones. The database is set to 0 GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Uh, Business hours for this company are in Eastern Standard Time. I know nobody uses Eastern Standard. It's usually Eastern Daylight, but anyway, for the purposes of this, our business hours are in Eastern Standard. And then once again, it needs to convert between the user's time zone and Eastern Standard as well. It needs to check against the user's time zone against business hours. Now we can use whatever times we want when we're just inserting into the database with a SQL query. But when you're actually using the application to manipulate things, then you have to schedule it in business hours. And this application should compensate and handle that for you and just allow you to pick time slots that are valid in terms of business hours and also conflicts between attendees of each appointment. In this case, contacts here in this column, and customers, which actually we just show their ID here. The primary key in the database in terms of, well, the foreign key to the customer object in the database. Okay, something I touched on there but didn't really talk about yet was this is supposed to adhere to the data access object model of data manipulation, of programming. We are working with a SQL database, but we don't really want to handle manipulations of data in the database. We want to import them to this application, handle manipulations there, and then update the database accordingly. All right. I wanted to kind of make sure we got that appointment within the, didn't want to let 15 minutes expire before we could demonstrate that functionality. So I am going to go ahead and delete this to make sure that the next time we log in, it doesn't give us that alert. And we will log back out. It does have code to connect and disconnect automatically as we close the program and log in accordingly. All right. Another stipulation of the program, as it takes forever to launch back up here, give me just a second, is that I actually need to close this. We are a generic enterprise that operates in the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. So, especially for our Canadian customers, we needed to demonstrate that we could work with resource bundles to translate at least some of this into French. So what I did here is just uncommented some code to set our system language to French, and detecting that, the login screen should, and does, accordingly translate everything to French. It even works for the error messages, which I probably should have demonstrated in English, but maybe you're French. Hey, c'est la vie. All right. So that was a fun part of this, was the only thing it doesn't actually translate is this time zone here. That was not part of the requirements. These are just Java time zone objects. So it's referencing those directly. They didn't make us go far enough. I could have done this, but they didn't make us go far enough to translate the strings for those Java objects, just native to those packages. All right. So we logged in again. We deleted that appointment, so there are no appointments within the next 15 minutes. I want to show you the database side just momentarily. Let's see. I guess this would have been more effective had I shown you that appointment before we deleted it on this section. Made the font gigantic just so that I could be sure you could read it in the final video. Anyway, there was an appointment 10. It was that 15-minute appointment within 15 minutes that I was demonstrating for this alert. It is now gone, but I wanted it to be clear it was gone from the database, and we'll demonstrate throughout this that things actually do get imported and deleted from imported, updated, deleted from the database, and yeah, as we actually commit changes in the application layer. All right, so this is our home screen once we've logged in and once we've exited out of the appointment alert. We can filter, it starts with appointments, but you can change between customers and appointment objects. These are also tables in the database layer. And that's one of the great things about kind of the relationship between databases and object-oriented languages is that, you know, a table tuple is directly analog to an object in Java. At least you can program it that way. Conceptually, they're kind of the same thing. All right, so we can, when we log in, it imports all of these objects, appointments, customers, actually some more, like there's a division ID for states and provinces in the database. There's country objects. Let's see. Those are kind of more behind the scenes. I don't see the value really in demonstrating them too much. They are associated with the customers and such. There shouldn't be any sort of relational errors that pop up in terms of that because the application layer doesn't actually deal with the deletion or creation of countries, because I think the UN handles that, right? That's where that happens. Okay. In addition to switching between the customer and appointment objects, we can switch between monthly and weekly view. This is kind of fun. This is working as intended, but it might not look like it. Our monthly schedule has one appointment that doesn't show up on the weekly schedule because this appointment is actually yesterday. And then the weekly has one that doesn't show up on the monthly because the weekly is actually showing appointments within the next 7 days. So it wouldn't show yesterday's. And the monthly is simply showing anything that matches November. So we could change that. We could do that either. We could have weeks begin on any given Sunday and end on any given Saturday, or we could just demonstrate anything. We could display anything that's showing from today to 7 days from today, which is actually what we've chosen for weekly. For monthly, we've just chosen to show November or December or, you know, any of the 12 months. We could have opted for anything within the next 30 days, but I kind of liked the idea of demonstrating both. Maybe you'd want it to show by any given month, so you know your users and clients could feel a sense of closure as the end of the month rolls around and their appointment thins out. Or maybe you'd rather show all appointments within the next 30 days, just so that all that information is right there without having to look at the reports. Speaking of which, the reports can show a little bit more robust information about different types of things. For instance, we can show a breakdown of each the number of appointment types. We got planning, sessions, networking, troubleshooting, brainstorming, stuff like that, types of appointments. And it also shows which month each of those types, the quantity of each of those types per month. So we've got 2 planning sessions in November, we've got 1 networking session in November, et cetera, et cetera. There are actually some on here that have long expired, long past the appointments. Those were just defaults into the database for the project. They're something like May 2020 and December 2020. So long expired. They are still in the database, but they just won't show up for like the regular appointment screen, because obviously they are not something clients, customers, or users need to concern themselves with anymore. There is also schedules by contacts. This breaks down the schedule of the employee. And actually, I believe it shows, if I remember right, it will actually show, yeah, past appointments. This is where our May appointment was with Daniel Garcia here, May of 2020. This shows the full schedule, regardless of temporal abnormalities. Yeah, this should filter successfully through each contact. You'll see this attribute name change each time that we shift the contacts, and it filters and lets us view the entire schedule for each of them. There's only 3 reports. I can easily imagine we could do hundreds of reports or just implement some kind of filter for each of these columns to take the place of reports. But for this project, we were blessed with less of a mandate to go really deep and hard into that. That actually would be a lot of fun to work on something like that. But yeah, that's more something for a full-time job to implement full features like that. But these reports were a fun way to start to explore how those full features might work and what might consist, what might be desirable in an application on a enterprise level. This one is showing the type of objects that have actually been retired, so appointments that have been deleted. This number 10 here was our appointment that demonstrated the appointment within 15 minutes alert upon login. These others are just appointments that have been deleted for whatever reason as I was setting up the database for this demo. Not too important, just kind of cool that we could potentially use this report to make manual SQL insertions outside of the application layer if we wanted to reuse these retired IDs. There is no way to reuse these retired IDs in the application layer, and that's by design. It helps with referential integrity to make sure that we'd rather just let the auto increment of the primary keys within the database just make new IDs and not recycle the old ones automatically. That way there's much less chance that you'd ever accidentally create a primary key that matches 2 different objects and ruin your normalization in the database. Just not letting you do that within the application layer is just a convenient way to handle that.